All right. Welcome to the AYCO ACE discussion series and a special welcome to ACA members. We did have 19 people registered for today's training discussion, but we had some link confusion. So hopefully, if you have colleagues that registered, please advise them to reach out to Elena, and perhaps she can share the recording that we're doing today. My name's Carrie Heller. I'm from the Circus Arts Institute, and I'm the former chair of the Insurance Committee, and I'm going to be presenting this discussion for us today. Let's see. This is primarily an information session, and we also offer this same information session in our EdCon, in the very last EdCon. So once I go into the presentation mode, I will not be able to see if you're asking a question. So please, you can feel free to type your questions into the chat or just write your questions down yourself, because we only have like 10 slides. So as soon as I'm done with the presentation, I'm going to leave the rest of the time to answer y'all's questions. Since we're starting late, I'll go over a little bit if we have additional questions. Okay? All right. Okay, so now I'm going to change us to our presentation mode. And here we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. All right, can you all see the presentation? Wonderful. Okay. So we always like to begin by reminding everybody that we're not insurance brokers, so we can't provide any quotes or policy terms, but I'll try to answer as many questions as I am able to. So our goal in the insurance committee is to empower the circus community with the knowledge, resources, and advocacy that you all need to maintain and to obtain and maintain comprehensive insurance coverage and promote a safe and thriving circus arts community. So that's what our goal is. The insurance committee was officially formed in 2014 by Carlo Pellegrini, with a lot of strategic work to fully come together for this cause. So I always like to give a shout out to Carlo. This is called Insurance 101. Why do you need insurance for your circus business? The reasons are, in the event of a claim, insurance can help cover large expenses, such as legal fees to defend in a lawsuit, for example. Insurance does help you to transfer these risks and expenses to an insurance company to protect your business from debt and permanent closure. Your broker can help you navigate a claim and advocate for you with your insurance company. Many schools and organizations and cities and performance venues, landlords, etc., they require that you show proof of insurance in order to create rental and business agreements with them. And assessing the coverage of an insurance policy can help you understand the risk of your business activities, and it can aid in the development of risk mitigation practices and plans. Second question is, what types of insurance do you need? Well, there's a lot of different types. We absolutely recommend that you cover commercial liability insurance for bodily injuries, damage to the leased or rented studios, participant accident insurance. So you want to have that liability and that medical coverage. All right. And that's in case you have an injury in your class. This can sometimes help us avoid a lawsuit. We also want to have property insurance if you have property. You want to have workman's comp and employees liability insurance if you have employees. You can have management liability and directors and officers insurance, and this is for claims from the financial and other management at an organization, personal liability for directors and officers, and it's financial protection for an organization. So that's something to consider as well if you have an organization. If you have inland marine things, equipment that you transport business properties that's in a movable or used for transportation or communication purposes, you want to consider inland marine. That's for mobile property or equipment. If you're using automobiles, you want to consider having non-owned or hired automobile liability. And we do recommend abuse liability insurance for allegations of abuse and any kind of harassment. And sometimes you can talk to your broker about excess umbrella insurance. And this represents additional liability insurance. If a policyholder is sued for damages that exceed the liability limits for your coverage types, an umbrella policy can help cover those expenses. You may also need additional types of insurance depending on the nature of your business, and that's where a good broker can advise you on what to get. This question we're asked a lot. What is the difference between a broker, a carrier, and an underwriter? The broker is the agent. That's the salesperson or the sales company that we speak to. They work on behalf of the customer, and they're not restricted to selling policies for a specific carrier. Brokers receive commissions for the sales and the service of their insurance policies, so they can go to multiple different carriers. An underwriter is the person who identifies, examines, and classifies the degree of risk represented by a proposed insured in order to determine whether or not the coverage should be provided, and if so, at what rate. So the underwriting risk is the section of the risk-based capital formula calculating requirements for reserves and premiums. So the underwriter is the person that we don't talk to. Okay, the broker speaks to them directly. And then the carrier is also known as the insurance provider or the insurer. The carrier is the financial resource behind the coverage provided by your insurance policy. This is the company who actually pays up in the event of a claim on your policy. Okay. Next question is, what's the difference between occurrence and claims-based coverage, claims-made coverage? Occurrence is when you have coverage under the occurrence continues to be available after the expiration date of your policy or after the expiration date of the actual occurrence. And this is going to be an occurrence that happens while the policy is in force, regardless of when the claim is reported. Okay, so you can have an accident in September and it can be reported in April, even if you don't have that same policy. Since it's occurrence-based, it will be covered. Whereas claims made covers only claims that occur and are reported while the policy is in force. So when you change your carrier from one claims made policy to another, you need to consider purchasing retroactive coverage with your new insurance company for incidents which might have occurred but you're not aware of, or an extended reporting extension with the previous company so that you can report claims after your expiration date of that previous policy. Okay, so obviously you want to definitely check with your company. Which kind of insurance is it? And I always ask for occurrence because then it's covered afterwards as well. Generally, the coverage is the same on both of those policy formats. However, an occurrence policy provides more seamless and continuous coverage. And finally, what are loss runs? Loss runs are the documents that outline your claims history with a particular carrier. And to obtain these documents, you send a request. Usually I just email my broker asking for your loss runs for whatever time period you need. And most brokers will want a copy of your lost runs from all of the carriers you have worked with in the last 3 to 5 years before they might be willing to give you a quote. So it's also a good idea for you to keep these lost runs on file for your own records so they are easily accessible for you to send to brokers for quotes. And your broker is required by law to issue you your lost runs. So when you send a request, they are required to give that to you. Okay, like when I changed policies, I had to call my old carriers and get lost runs from all of them to give to my new broker. Okay. We have some unique challenges in obtaining insurance for circus business because circus is unfortunately not very well understood by insurers, and they perceive us as risky, even though we have a lot of presentations that explain how we're less risky than some other sports. And we're also very small compared to others, and circus businesses do have limited insurance options, unfortunately. So it's rare for us to find a one-stop shop for all of our needs, and sometimes we have to go to multiple different brokers. Okay, or I mean, multiple. You have to have multiple sources. Like I have one broker, but she's gone to 2 different carriers. I have one carrier for my director's operators insurance and one carrier for my liability and medical. Okay, but if you have a good broker, hopefully they have access to a variety of options for you. The other thing for us to remember when we talk about being a small industry is that if insurance companies do not make money off of us, they're less likely and less motivated to take us on as clients, and then they commit less resources, which is why we've tried to help everybody know who the resources are so we can go to some of the same resources so it can be worth their while to help us out. The current trends of circus insurance is that unfortunately our insurance premiums are going up, especially post-pandemic. And a lot more circus schools have come into being, so our community, in a positive note, is expanding. Many brokers and carriers, along those lines, the basically higher revenues equals and a higher number of our participants will be higher premiums. And it's important to understand that that's often why your insurance rates go up. If you have more students, that's a good reason for your insurance to be going up. Many brokers and carriers will not keep circus portfolios longer than a handful of years. We tend to be very exciting and shiny at first for the insurance brokers, but then they often see some challenges and higher risk. They recognize that we are a smaller community. And sometimes we have a lot of questions, and they will often consider us a little bit more high maintenance. And then they start increasing our prices. And then, as we've experienced with multiple partners, they then drop us. And sometimes they drop us because they're bought out by bigger companies. And the bigger companies make the evaluation that they don't want to invest in us anymore. So that's why we've gone through several partners and done our very best to try to hold on to partners. But each time they've been bought out. So now we've given a resource list, which I'm going to talk about in a few moments. And the few brokers offering policies for circus businesses are typically using the same carriers. So it's important to know that once a broker submits an application to a carrier for you, that carrier can no longer quote you through another broker. This can give a perception of a broker having a better deal when it's really about the carrier. So in order to address that, if you do want to go to another broker that works with the same carrier, you need a broker letter of record. It must be signed to stop working with one broker and switch to another broker if they're using the same carrier. And once that's done, it's hard to go back. So it's good for you to know who the carriers are so that if you're switching companies, you'll have to have that broker of record letter. Some of our projects with the insurance committee is that we're helping continuing to interview new brokers who come to our attention that they're interested in working with Circus. So we're consistently trying to find new insurance. We have stopped, sports underwriters stopped, years ago, they were going to stop working with us because of the height. And we ended up putting together a presentation so that we could explain to them that even though we work at a bit of a higher height, the risk is not increasing dramatically. One of the benefits of our last partner, Front Row, is that they actually did this presentation with us, and as a result, we then, after that presentation, Sports Underwriter did start working with us, and the height limit was no longer an issue. So that's part of what the insurance committee is doing for our community. We're advocating behind the scenes to try and get rid of height limits and to bring on more carriers. We're also collecting and utilizing useful insurance data from our members so that we can learn what's going on with you all and improve our services to you. We're tracking and researching trends, and we're implementing clear communication strategies so we can better connect with our members in the circus community. And part of that includes this kind of a presentation where we're doing our best to inform the community of any updates, new resources, and new information that we've learned. We do have a frequently asked questions page on our website, and this is designed to help educate and empower our members and the greater circus community as well. It does include some insurance basics, what we recommend, and what we recommend you ask your broker so that you can get the best policy for yourself. We talk about claims and a lot more as well. We do periodically add and update the frequently asked questions, and that particular page was vetted by Front Row, our former partner, so that the information is very accurate. So you might want to check that out after this presentation today. And here on the bottom of this slide is the link for the frequently asked questions. But if you go to our website and go to the insurance frequently asked questions page, you can find that as well. And this is our wonderful broker resource list. We have curated the selection of insurance brokers specifically chosen to cater to the unique needs of circus educators and performers. This is designed as a quick reference resources, and it serves as a valuable starting point for anyone seeking insurance solutions within our community. And this is something that we've worked on for quite some time, and we've spoken extensively with each one of these brokers. And on that list, we've listed the carriers as well. So if you want to go to another broker, you can look ahead of time to see what carriers are being used so that you get your broker of record letter if need be. So some of the things that we can do as a community is educate our fellow circus members about insurance and just share what you've learned with your circus colleagues. You can educate your own broker about circus and circus safety. Part of our job is to help them understand that we have a lot of safety practices in place. And like we have a whole safety network, we have guidelines set forth for members. So there's a lot of things we can do to educate brokers to help them understand that we really do follow our best safety practices. We want to help us promote our partner broker if and when we have a partner broker again. Unfortunately, we don't have one right now, but if we do, and if we're fortunate enough to get another one, we hope you'll join us in promoting them. We also want to share we want you to share your insurance needs and hopes with us. So anytime you have questions, you can email the insurance committee and they will answer your questions. Okay. And how we want to help you is by answering any questions that you have, by offering informational webinars like this one. We're going to continue updating our resource list. So when we talk with new insurance brokers, we're going to notify you of that, and we're going to add those brokers to the list. And we're also going to continue tracking industry trends and data to stay ahead. And part of us updating the resource list is developing these new relationships with partners, brokers, and sometimes we reach out to carriers and do these safety presentations to them so they understand why we don't really want to have that much of a height limit and that we are, once again, practicing safely. All right, so that is the presentation. I'm going to come out of our share screen so I can see all your lovely faces again. And I know that was a lot of information, and I have just a little bit more information to share, which are very recent updates. The most recent updates that I learned from my insurance broker is that insurance companies are being a little bit more specific with regards to performance now. And they're distinguishing between performance by students, which is usually covered under your policy because you're educating your students, and part of the education is them doing like a show off, right? So that's typically covered, but you want to double check, okay? Now, staff performing, we've learned is sometimes covered, sometimes not. So you want to specifically check and make sure that your staff is covered if they perform. Performance outside of your studio is sometimes not covered as well. So you want to double check on that also. And performance that includes guest artists are sometimes covered and sometimes not. So really, anything outside of your students performing as part of their class structure and their educational program or recital kind of thing may or may not be covered, and we really encourage you to check that. As opposed to 20 years ago, when I was in the thick of my circus world, all of that was covered. It was just not even a question, okay? And I'll tell you another new development that I just learned is that now, if you have employees, they are typically covered. However, your independent contractors and volunteers can sometimes be covered and sometimes not. So it's very important that you double check on that. Most brokers can also cover your independent contractors and volunteers, but for example, one broker I spoke to said, you know, Carrie, all your employees are covered and your independent contractors will be covered, but they also have to have individual policies. That was brand new for me. So these are the kinds of, like, I didn't even know to ask that question at first. So you have to, that's why I'm sharing this with you, because there are very new developments that are making it so that we just need to ask more specific questions. Okay. All right. Those are the additions to the PowerPoint presentation that I just shared with you, the most recent additions. So now I would like to first thank all of you for being here and open up our presentation for questions. If anyone has any questions, I will do my very best to try to answer them. And if not, I'll write down your question and try and figure out the answer. All right. And as I mentioned earlier, we had 19 people registered for this, but we had a little snafu with the link. So if you have colleagues that registered for this that did not get the correct link in time, please encourage them to reach out to our communications person, Elena, and ask if they can see the recording of this presentation since we are being recorded. Okay. All right. I know that was a lot of information. I'm always afraid I'm not going to finish in time for questions, so I think I rushed a little bit. So please let me know if you have any questions. Yes, Becca, I finally saw your hand up.
No problem. Sometimes people notice those icons and sometimes they don't. I was like, maybe I should just cancel that. So the question I have is, unfortunately, the only studio in my area closed earlier this year. And one of the solutions that the aerialists who have continued practicing, which includes me, have maybe kind of tossed around a little bit is just renting a simple space and running it sort of like a collective. So not a studio. There are no performances, no official classes. Just professionals can come in, rent points, and there's kind of no umbrella studio in the traditional sense. But one of our big concerns is how does insurance work in a situation like that? Or is the answer just it's actually not any different? It's treated just as a studio anyway.
That's a great question. And that question's never been brought to us before. Let me see what Carly is saying here. She might know the answer. If independent contractors need their own individual oh, okay. I'll answer that question next, Carly. Okay. So for a collective, like I said, that question's never been brought to us. But since you're not teaching classes, and really it sounds like it's a workout space. It's like an open studio.
Exactly. Yep.
So my recommendation is that you look on our resource list and you call as many of those brokers as you have time, and you specifically say to them exactly what you said to me and say, Carrie from the insurance committee recommended that I call you and tell you exactly what you were doing and how can you properly insure us. And it might be that each of you need individual policies. Okay, but then we're looking at the space as well. So you want to make sure that the property is covered, the actual, rigging in there, the property, and each of you. And you also want to think to yourself about the fact that what will happen when one of you does want to teach. Okay, because eventually that will probably happen. So my guess, my inclination would be to say to the broker, right now, none of us are teaching. It's just our own workout space. But tell me, what would the scenario look like if one of us wanted to teach? Would it just be that one person that would then get additional insurance to teach? Or would everybody, if it's a collective, how does that work? So I would recommend you write out a list of questions, everything I just said, plus anything else you can possibly think of, including what if you have some volunteers that want to come in and work in the space? What if you have new people that want to join your collective? What if you do want to put on a performance as a collective? I would have, and it might be that right now the insurance is just for exactly what you want, but you know what the cost will be for those other options. Okay,
Thank you.
because sure, I hope that's helpful. Um, all right, and now I'm going to look at Carly's question, which is a great question. It's exactly what I said to my broker. If independent contractors need their own policies, what is the purpose of even covering them under your general studio policy? That seems like a direct contradiction. How are how are we supposed to know to ask that? Talking about insurance always makes me feel like we pay more and more for less and less coverage, and that the coverage isn't even ultimately useful. So that's a very good point and a great question, Carly. It's exactly what I asked my broker. I don't know if you were here, Carly, when SNS was presenting in March when I did this. Was it March? No, it was not March. It was more recently. It was July. In July, I'm pretty sure in July, I had SNS doing a presentation, and they told us in the presentation, they said to me, Carrie, since you have independent contractors, each of them has to have their own policy as well. So, and the answer I got, what I seem to remember is that there's Circus Arts Institute. So I have to make sure that Circus Arts Institute is covered if Circus Arts Institute gets sued. And and they can sue Circus Arts Institute, they can sue Carrie Heller, they can sue each one of my trainers that was involved. So, and that's how they answered my question, that because I was a business, I had to carry insurance for my business, which included all my people that worked with me. And if any of those people were not employees, they too had to have individual insurance. Okay. And what's happening is that I am then going to pay for both of those because they're working for me. Now, if they also work for other people, they're going to probably split the independent contractor insurance with me. We'll each pay a portion of that. So that was kind of the answer that was given to me, Carly. I too am baffled by this new development. And it might be that not all carriers and not all brokers require that. But I know that two of the most recent brokers I spoke to do require it. So I agree with you, Carly. And it does seem like we're paying more and more for less and less. And that is what's happening. Even with all of our advocacy work, that is sadly what is happening. And so, Carly, tell me if that answers your question to the degree that I'm able to answer.
I think it does. So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that the independent contractors are covered if someone sues like Circus Arts Institute as an entity, but if they sue Circus Arts Institute as well as XYZ person, then XYZ person does not have any individual coverage unless they also have their own policy. Is that what you're saying?
That is my understanding of what my broker told me. And I have, that is my understanding. However, my recommendation is that you ask your specific broker
Yeah.
what the situation is. Each of you need to ask your specific broker because I'm just beginning to integrate that information. Today, I just had a conversation with another one of my trainers that was going to help me out with something because I'm only working part-time now. And I said, oh, before you help me out, I need to get you independent contractor insurance. So we just had that conversation this morning. So I'm about to shell out another $300 or $400 so she can help me out with a few people. Okay, so um, and Carly, I'm going to have another conversation with my broker about this so I can make sure I'm understanding it right. But I think that's what she meant. And again, I'll repeat, please ask your broker in detail what that means. And like the scenario that Carly and I just said to you all, I would say that scenario to your broker. What if something were to happen in my studio and show Henry's organization show was sued? Okay, so is his teacher covered if just show is being sued? Because the truth is, typically in suits like this, people sadly sue everybody that they can sue. So they're not just going to sue show. If Henry was a teacher, they're going to sue Henry also. And if he's an employee and your insurance covers all employees, we're good to go. But if Henry has Johnny teaching and Johnny's an independent contractor, it comes in 3 hours a week, it might be that Johnny also needs that $300 or $400 independent contractor insurance. But I would advise Henry to ask his broker and give that exact scenario. Okay, and I'll also add that it seems to be changing on a fairly regular basis right now. So I'm going to be renewing my insurance early in 2026, and I'm going to be asking all the same questions over again to make sure that nothing has changed yet again. Okay. Carly, I'm sorry I can't answer that more thoroughly, but that's how I understand it.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome. I see a request for the broker list. I'm putting that in the chat right now. And I don't know what the current height limit is for Francis L. Dean. But last time I requested a policy with them for one of my independent contractors, I made the mistake of checking off a height limit that was too high, and they denied me insurance. Okay. So anything you can do to figure that out ahead of time, because they tend to change it. I mean, I knew what the height limit is. I went and applied, and they had already lowered it. So I was disqualified that particular year from getting the insurance that I needed. So, and at this point, I haven't applied to them for so long, but look on our resource list, because the resource list has Francis L. Dean, and I have a suspicion that whoever on the committee interviewed them might have written down their height limit. So somebody can go check the resource list and see if that information is on there. But from my understanding, they're the only ones that have denied access to insurance because of height, because you have to do an online registration with them. Whereas with other brokers, you can verbally ask them and they'll give you an answer before you apply. Okay, these are great questions. Any other questions? Yes, Henry. You,
All right. So I have a esoteric question within a world of esoteric questions, which is I actually just sold Show Circus Studio to Tara Jacob, former executive director of AYCO. And I still work there, but I'm gonna start doing my own rigging consultation company. And I've been asking around about getting insurance just as a rigger, and it seems like it is an even smaller world to get insured as an aerial rigger. Obviously, you can get insured for arena and theatrical rigging, but I'm less interested in doing that. Do you know anything about getting insurance as an aerial rigger?
that is a great question, and I have not had that question come to me ever before. But Craig Lewis is a
Yep.
rigger. Only because he's the one person I know that offers rigging workshops here in the United States, and he's insured here in the United States. I do know riggers that are insured in Canada, but that they only insure Canadian. So, and they have a lot more options. So I would shoot Craig an email and ask him that, tell him that I referred you to him. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. Well, no, and
already. Yep,
congratulations,
I
Dale.
already spoke with him and with Delbert Hall.
You have, of course.
And
Yeah. Did they give you
uh,
any tips?
Yeah, it sounds like there may be a couple of companies that are very highly selective, and it seems that you need to be able to provide a history of not having claims against you, which is fairly easy to do. I just wanted to know if there were any additional resources that you knew of.
My suggestion is to look at our resource list and
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna.
call up every one of them and ask them if they would provide you with insurance just for what you're hoping to do, because they are the ones most familiar with circus that we have spoken to. So that's going to be where I would start after you've called up Craig's and Delbert's resources.
Okay,
Okay,
excellent. Thank you.
sure. All right, I'm going to look at Lizzie's question. Can you speak to the similarities and differences between insurance for circus schools and gymnastics gyms? Is height the main factor the underwriters see as different? I am not as familiar with gymnastics gyms, except for those who have aerials inside of their gym. But what I can tell you is that the gymnastics world has a whole set of standards that have been in place for a longer period of time than we have the ANSI standards in place for aerial. So, and they have national organizations that are funded in a way that we don't have. Some national organizations that are funded to provide lots of resources to their people. So, and gymnastics has a lot more studios than circus. So there's a lot more money in it for the insurance company to insure gymnastics. Therefore, they have more resources than we do because the insurance companies stand to profit more because there's many more gymnastic studios out there at this time than circus studios. So that's what I do know. And your question, is height the main factors the underwriters see as different? I think that's one of the factors, but the main factor from my experience has been that unless we educate them, they for some reason do think that circus is more risky than most other activities. So for that reason, we as the insurance company have spent a good bit of time trying to educate brokers and carriers. And we've literally like looked at football statistics, gymnastics statistics. We have shown them all of these numbers to help, identify again all the safe ways that we practice our art form. But because there's fewer circus schools, fewer circus folks around than gymnastics. For that reason, it's more expensive. It's one of the reasons I think that it's a little bit more expensive for us because they think we're riskier and there's fewer of us, so they have to charge us more to make any money, which is the reason why we really wanted to have a partner for all those years. Because if we have a partner and we're all going to the same person, due to the volume, they have a possibility of giving us a better rate. And the volume of gymnastics allows them to be more reasonable when they're pricing them out. But I do know that as soon as a gymnastics studio puts a aerial piece there, it's a new level of insurance that gymnastics will have to pay as well. So, Lizzie, I hope that begins to answer your question. Okay, we have about 3 more minutes. Does anyone have any other questions that I might try to answer while we're here? Well, once again, I really want to thank all of you for being here, and I'm apologizing again for the link confusion. And please do tell your colleagues to listen to the presentation and email the insurance committee if you have a question. But first, go to the frequently asked questions because most of the questions are actually answered on that page, and we give a whole lot of information on that page. All right, well, I want to thank all of you again for attending, and I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week. And I'm going to stay on just for a couple minutes in case there's any private questions that people have for me. Otherwise,
you.
you all, and please tell Tara I said congratulations, and congratulations to you, and good luck with your new venture, Henry.
Thank you very much. Everything's going super, super well.
That's awesome.
We took a full year